more libertarian states in the country, Butch Otter is the only Republican in the entire nation who voted against the Patriot Act. Only one. Don't like the guy at all, but he did vote against the Patriot Act. So use that, like Tim said, use that with your conservative relatives and your friends to help change the story and make this a reality. My name's Brian Eric Bothwell, and I'm here to speak to you about what's wrong with cannabis laws. It was Black Friday last year, the biggest shopping day of the year, where people battle traffic and zillions of other consumers to go out and buy a bunch of crap and stand in line to get prices that really are not that much better than online. I've long avoided attempting to face such crowds and usually stay home and spend time with my family and friends. But last Black Friday, I saw a message from Sarah Frank, and I joined her and a handful of other New Approach volunteers down and stood out in the corners of Eagle and Fairview Roads, and we held up signs promoting legalizing cannabis in Idaho and gathering a number of signatures in the process. It was a bitterly cold November day, and by the end of the morning, we were cold and numb, but the response we got from people was actually pretty overwhelming. 80% of the people would say, thumbs up, smiles, right on, friendly honks to their horn. We gathered a lot of signatures. Of course, there was a few people that reacted to our presence negatively, booing, thumbs downing, flipping us off. One person I remember most vividly, a middle-aged woman, looked sort of uptight, driving in a small car with her teenage daughter. She glared at me and said, "Boo, marijuana's bad, wrong, it's wrong." I walked up to her very calmly. The window was rolled down enough, her teenage daughter tightened up, and it's like, I'm like, "Excuse me, what's wrong?" And she said, "Marijuana's wrong, it's bad." I said, "Do you want to know what's wrong?" And this just came to me out of the blue in this moment. My dear 93-year-old grandmother, the matriarch of our family, sitting in a retirement home not 2 miles from here, struggling with severe neuropathy, severe chronic pain, and doctors have her so doped up on opiates, morphine, everything. She hates taking these drugs. She doesn't even have any fun taking them. They make her feel like a zombie. They sap all of her energy she has left. She'd be totally open to trying medical cannabis. We had people trying to get it to her, but she refused to take it out of fear. She feared she would have to tell her doctors and that she would get caught. And so I told her that is what is wrong. That is what is wrong here. The woman went from looking hostile to having just a small glimpse of understanding and compassion in her eyes. The teenage daughter let slip a sly smile in my direction, and they drove off as the light turned green. My sweet grandmother, Betty Odessa Bothwell, sadly passed away this spring at 94 years old. It is wrong that Betty could not have tried medical cannabis legally and safely in order to help her final days be more pleasant and peaceful. So in honor of my grandmother, Betty, and anyone else out there who's suffering who could benefit from cannabis as medicine, I want to emphasize how so very wrong the current policy at both the federal and Idaho state levels is. That a natural plant medicine like cannabis is still a Schedule I drug, while highly physically addictive drugs like cocaine and meth are Schedule II. It's insane. Not only is it wrong, it's unethical and immoral, in my opinion. The classification of a Schedule I drug, if you didn't know, is as follows. This is the written law. Schedule I drugs, substances, and chemicals are defined as drugs with no currently accepted medical use and a high potential for abuse. Schedule I drugs are the most dangerous of all drug schedules with potentially severe psychological and physical dependence. For anyone who's seen the results of cannabis on children suffering from severe forms of epilepsy, how can anyone claim that cannabis has no medical use? That, my friends, is just plain wrong, right? That's wrong. Can I get a woohoo? Thank you. For those who suffer from chronic pain, like Mother and cannabis activist Sarah Frank of Idaho's New Approach Idaho, and hear about the dramatic reduction in pain that she and others receive with minimal negative side effects compared to pharmaceuticals, how can those people claim that cannabis has no medical use? That is what is wrong. I have a sweet and sassy 70-year-old friend up in northern Idaho who had problematic skin cancer for over a year and a half on her head. Doctors couldn't get rid of it. In less than a month, with topical administration of cannabis oil, illegally I might add, completely cured her skin cancer. She's been cancer-free for over a year. Doctors were dumbfounded. How can anyone claim that cannabis has no medical value? This is outrageous and wrong. In a moral, ethical, and just society, people should not suffer needlessly due to unjust, immoral, and unscientific laws. The current cannabis laws are all of those things, and we need as many of you people as possible to get out there and talk to your friends, talk to your relatives, especially conservative relatives who might not be, marijuana's bad, and talk to them. And anyone who's misinformed, uneducated, or just plain ignorant about the real potential that cannabis has as medicine, talk to those people and do your homework. Speak and write to your representatives, whose jobs, in theory at least, are to represent we the people. Right? Butch? Minimally, cannabis needs to be available medically in Idaho and elsewhere, as it is around our more progressive neighbors such as Washington, Oregon, Montana, and Nevada. We're sort of surrounded by states. Who's next? I think it should be us. At the federal level, cannabis needs to be rescheduled from the insanely stupid Schedule 1 classification to Schedule 2, 3, or possibly 4. And I'm outraged to hear the DEA just rejected an appeal to have it rescheduled this week. However, there's a groundswell movement across the nation, people like you, who are rejecting the tired, fear-based worldview of those who seek to repress plant-based medicines like cannabis and others, to repress freedom and liberty of individuals to choose for themselves what medicines they use for physical, emotional, and spiritual healing. The time is coming when these unscientific and fear-based laws will look silly, and our children and grandchildren will look back and say, what were they thinking? The time has come. Let's start undoing the wrongs around cannabis and continue the movement that's being realized in states all around our great country. Let's start doing it right, Idaho. Peace.